So one of the questions that I want to talk about is signs of divorce. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, and he was saying to me, Kasim, how would I know that my missus wants a divorce? What should I be looking out for? This came from a conversation that I was having with this guy about relationships, and I was giving him some data around some research that I was doing. And the research was around who files for divorce. And in case you don't know, and is what I was sharing with him, in over 80% of the cases, the person who actually ends up filing for divorce tends to be the woman. So the likelihood of the person who is going to ask for the divorce first, or who is most likely to ask for the divorce first, 8 times out of 10 is going to be the woman. So that kind of tells us, if you're a man, there's a very likely chance that your missus, at some point, if you ever get divorced, is going to be the one to ask for the divorce. So what should you be looking out for? Well, as obvious as this sounds, if there is a potential for divorce in your relationship, your missus is going to talk about it, as obvious as it sounds. So a woman will usually start talking about a divorce. She'll start hinting it. You will start hearing it in arguments, but she will not use the exact word divorce, but she'll start saying things like, God, I'm better off without you. My life was better off before we got married. God, I can just imagine, were I to be single, how good my life would be. Me and the children's life would be so much better. You hear it firstly coming in terms of that kind of language, and then as the relationship, or certainly that path to divorce progresses, the language will change to more the use of the word divorce coming into common vocabulary. I'll tell you something which I've found out about divorce, which is quite interesting. Divorce is extremely difficult for a woman to come to, because divorce has a lot of what are called raw emotions. So there's a lot of emotions with guilt, with anger, with resentment. There's a lot of shame around guilt, right? These are really hard emotions to overcome. To overcome shame or to overcome guilt is a really, really difficult emotion to overcome. It's not just like, oh, I feel a bit pissed off today, and a bit later on in the afternoon you can feel better. No, to feel guilt or shame, these are emotions that take a long time. So I would probably say, on average, based on the research that I've found, it takes about 2 years for a woman to eventually get to the point where she wants a divorce. And let me tell you something else, which is really important. Once a woman has made a decision that she wants to get divorced, the chances of you convincing her are almost impossible. Now, I didn't say that they were impossible, but I'm saying to you that by the time a woman gets to the point where she's asking for the divorce papers, most women, because there's so many raw emotions revolving around divorce, she would have asked for you to go to counseling. She would have asked for you to help out. Like, loads and loads of steps would have taken place before she gets to the point where she starts asking for the divorce. So that's why, and this is very, very, very common. If you speak to women who've been divorced, there's a what's the phrase? The last ditch attempt. There is men right at the very end, particularly when women ask for divorce. Men do the crazy gestures and they do everything to try and save the marriage right at the very end. If you speak to women who've been married, it's one of their biggest frustrations, because it's like, well, what's happening with this whole Jekyll and Hyde thing? One minute you weren't doing the things that I wanted you to do or I needed you to do. Now all of a sudden you're doing them just because I've asked for divorce. So it's really important to understand, once a woman says, I want a divorce, you ain't going to persuade her otherwise. It is going to be extremely rare that you're going to be able to convince her. So going back to what I was saying, the first point is the woman starts talking about a divorce. Second thing, a second sign that you can start to look out for is when you two have individual independence. So, of course, like every relationship, you're supposed to be individual people working together as a team to achieve a certain vision of the relationship that you want, whether that be start a family, whether that be buy a home together, whether that be live in the countryside, whatever it may be. Every couple has a vision for their relationship. And whilst you are working as a team, you are as individuals. What begins to happen is when there is if you want to look out for a sign that your missus is starting to divorce you, is that she will start living a very independent life. So I said to you that women, it takes them about roughly 2 years before they come to, obviously that is a rough figure, okay? For some people it takes them 10 years. Some people it takes them 6 months. But as a rough estimate based on what I've researched, it takes about 6 years. So by the time a woman gets to the point where she is asking you for divorce, by that time she would have already made plans. Okay, a woman would have moved on emotionally already, right? She would have actually grieved the relationship by the time she gets to asking for you for a divorce, meaning she would have put certain things in place to ensure that she's going to be okay. So when you file for divorce, a lot of the time, and do not be so naive as to think that you're going to get away with this, women usually have built up evidence. And I know you're going to say, Kasim, that's horrible, Kasim, that's shit, you shouldn't do that, but I'm just telling you what the evidence says. Women will usually have got loads and loads of evidence that they're going to be able to use when they're getting divorced to get basically the majority of the stuff. This is why 9 times out of 10, women end up with more out of a divorce than the men do, right? The man leaves with absolutely nothing. And part of the reason why that happens is that men do not predict how savvy women will become when they're getting divorced. A woman would have planned things out. Women don't just get divorced, right, instantly. They would have thought about, where am I going to live? Who am I going? How much money do I have? So a typical thing that tends to happen is that women start saving money when they know they're getting divorced, right? You would have not noticed anything about it. Or if you were having an affair, they would have started gathering messages and putting them together in a file so that when they go to the court, they can use the messages. Right? When they might start recording conversations you're having when you're having an argument, right? Do not think and be so naive as to think that women won't do this. They will, right? People, I was studying divorce laws, and divorce lawyers were saying that when you see people getting divorced, you see human beings at their absolute worst, because people will do things that they're the nicest people, they're the loveliest people, they love their kids, they'll do anything for their neighbor. But when they're getting divorced, people go crazy, okay? People go mental. All rules become irrelevant when people are getting divorced, because they feel because of all those raw emotions that I talked about earlier on. So the second sign that you can look out for is when the person starts talking, you feel like you're both living different lives. She's like she's starting to party a lot, or she's starting to take the kids out by herself, or she is starting to go shopping by herself, or you will notice it. Like when she starts doing things, she will not be combining you into things. She'll be literally living an independent life. It's as if she's already trialing living independent before she actually does it. Does that make sense? So she won't ask you what you want when she goes shopping. She'll just go shopping and buy whatever it is that she wants to get. Does that make sense what I mean by that? Thirdly, is that another sign is that you're gonna start to see a lot of affairs. So I looked at some of the reasons why people divorce. Number one is affairs, money, family conflict, lack of sexual intimacy in a relationship. And I can tell you, these are some of the things that you want to begin to look out for. Because if you're finding that you two are not sleeping together very often, if you're finding that you two have loads of problems with your family, if you're finding that you two, like she's going away and sleeping away, like I remember one woman, actually, I was interviewing her and I said to her, how did you know that you and your ex-husband were going to get a divorce? And she said, because I started telling my husband that I was going away for work trips on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, right? And I said to him that I'll be back on Saturday evening, right? And I was going to go to a conference. And she said that's how it all began, because I just needed time away so that I could be with my husband, right? The guy she was married to at the time. Now they'd been together for like 30 years or something, but the way the relationship began was in that way. What else? You can also start to look for things like lack of touching, lack of lack of hugging, lack of kissing. All of these are signs that you're missing. I'll tell you something. When a woman, which is combined with that whole affair thing that I was talking about, when a woman is having an affair, she's sleeping with somebody else, I can tell you 100% that she's not going to want to have sex with you, right? She may, God forbid, have sex with you if it's like your birthday or something. But women don't like sleeping with multiple partners, the majority of them. Obviously, there's exceptions to every rule, as I've always said. But the majority of women do not like having multiple partners. So, and actually, here's where now gets where it gets really interesting. A lot of men, when they know that the woman that they're sleeping with is already married, they will tell the woman not to sleep with a man. It's fucked up, it's horrible, but I'm just telling you how it is. So if you're finding that your missus doesn't want to have intimacy, she doesn't want to have sex, that is another sign that you can begin to look out for. What else? People around you already know. So when people start going down this path of getting divorced, all their friends and family already know. In fact, usually, and this sounds really horrible, the last person to know that the divorce is going to happen is a partner. The partner is usually the last person to know. Everybody else, because the woman makes plans, she knows who's going to look after the kids. She's usually been talking to her friends about advice. Should I get divorced? How should I handle it? Most of her friends and family actually already know ahead before you know. So if you start seeing that you were really close, let's say, to their mom or their best friend or whoever, and their best friend or mom starts distancing themselves from you, this is a sign. Because the family know it's going to get ugly, it's going to get really complicated, so they want to distance themselves as much from you as absolutely possible. So that's some of the things that you can begin to look out for. I don't know whether they've been useful for you or not, but if you're thinking, is she wanting a divorce? That's some of the things you can look out for. I hope it's been useful. Thanks very much for watching. See you soon. Bye.